Get ready for the most heart-wrenching episode yet, as 1923 Season 2. Episode 7 puts Alexandra and Spencer's love to the ultimate test. Their journey across continents has been building to this moment, and now, with enemies closing in from all sides, their very survival hangs by a thread. As the Dutton legacy faces its darkest hour, will their love story end in tragedy, or can they overcome impossible odds once more? The stakes have never been higher as we race toward the season finale. The 7th episode of 1923's second season delivers a devastating blow to fans who have been rooting for Alexandra and Spencer since their passionate meeting in Africa. Their love story has been the emotional anchor of the series, providing hope amidst the brutal reality of the Dutton family struggles. But now, as the penultimate episode unfolds, that anchor may be ripped away forever. The episode opens with Alexandra awakening alone in their hotel room, Spencer's side of the bed empty and cold. The note beside her pillow simply reads, "I'll return by nightfall. Stay inside." But as hours pass and the sun begins to set, Alexandra's worry turns to dread. Spencer has never broken a promise to her before. Meanwhile, Spencer finds himself cornered in a dark alley across town, surrounded by men working for Alexandra's jilted former fiancé. "Your time running is over, Dutton," their leader snarls, revealing a telegram that shows they have been tracking the couple's movements across Europe. Spencer, ever the survivor of World War I horrors and the African wilderness, sizes up his opponents with the calculated calm we've come to expect from him. But even he cannot fight 6 armed men. The ensuing struggle is brutal and swift, leaving Spencer bloodied on the cobblestone street as rain begins to fall, washing his blood into the gutters of the foreign city they had hoped would be their sanctuary. Back at the Yellowstone Ranch, Patriarch Jacob Dutton receives a mysterious telegram that causes his weathered face to pale. He doesn't share its contents with Cara immediately. Instead, staring out across the vast Montana landscape his family has fought and died to protect. "Some legacies," he finally murmurs, "are built on sacrifices too great to bear." Cara, who has weathered decades of Dutton tragedies, recognizes the look in her husband's eyes. It's the same look he had when they lost their son. "Tell me," she demands, steeling herself for news that might shatter what remains of their family. The telegram, it is revealed, contains information about Spencer's last known whereabouts and a troubling report of violence involving an American matching his description. Jacob and Cara must now make an impossible decision: continue fighting their local battles against Banner Creighton and his powerful backers who threaten their land, or send what little help they can spare across oceans to save the nephew who may be their last hope for continuing the Dutton line. Their conversation, held in hushed tones by firelight, reveals the true weight of the Dutton legacy and the terrible price it demands from each generation. Alexandra, growing increasingly frantic as night falls completely with no sign of Spencer, finally defies his instruction to stay put. Grabbing his spare pistol from their luggage, she ventures into the unfamiliar European city streets. Her privileged upbringing never prepared her for this kind of danger, but her love for Spencer has transformed her from a sheltered British aristocrat into a woman willing to face any peril. She questions locals in her proper English accent, showing a photograph of Spencer to blank faces and shaking heads until finally a street vendor points her toward the district where fighting was reported earlier in the day. The tension builds to an unbearable level as Alexandra follows the trail of Spencer's last known movements. The once bright streets now appear sinister in the moonlight, shadows stretching like grasping fingers across her path. Every footstep echoing on the cobblestones feels like it could be alerting unseen enemies to her presence. She clutches Spencer's pistol tighter, remembering his hasty lessons on how to use it. "Point and squeeze," he had told her, "and pray you never need to." Now, with her heart pounding against her ribs, she fears that prayer has gone unanswered. When Alexandra finally discovers signs of the struggle, a torn piece of fabric she recognizes from Spencer's coat and dark stains on the stones that the rain couldn't fully wash away, she has to stifle a scream. Evidence of violence surrounds her, but Spencer is nowhere to be found. Was he taken? Is he dead? The questions torment her as she searches desperately for any clue to his fate. It's then that she notices a trail of blood droplets leading away from the main scene, as if someone wounded had managed to stagger away. With renewed determination, she follows this tenuous lifeline, praying it will lead her to Spencer. Back in Montana, the ranch faces its own crisis as Banner Creighton's men have begun strategically cutting off water access to Yellowstone sections, a slow strangulation that Jacob recognizes as the prelude to all-out war. "They're forcing our hand," Jacob tells his assembled ranch hands and family members. "They want us to strike first so they can claim self-defense when they bring their full force against us." The parallels between Spencer's battle for survival abroad and the Duttons' fight for their land at home create an intense, nail-biting episode, setting the stage for a finale that promises heartbreak, resilience, and the unyielding spirit that defines the Dutton family. Between the dangers facing both branches of the Dutton family, Spencer and Alexandra in Europe, and Jacob and Cara in Montana, the central theme that has defined the series is underlined. The Dutton legacy is both a blessing and a curse, offering purpose but demanding blood. In a surprising twist, the episode reveals that Alexandra's former fiancé has arrived in the same European city, having tracked them through his family's extensive connections. His appearance is a stark reminder of the class divide between Alexandra and Spencer. The aristocratic world she abandoned for love stands in sharp contrast to the frontier heritage Spencer carries. She was never meant for a life of struggle, the ex-fiancé tells his companions as they search the city. "I'm merely retrieving what was mine before she ruins herself completely." His cold entitlement sends chills down viewers' spines, especially when it becomes clear he doesn't intend for Spencer to survive their reunion. Alexandra's desperate search leads her to a small, dingy medical office where a doctor of questionable credentials tends to those who can't afford hospital care or wish to avoid official attention. The doctor initially denies treating any Americans, but Alexandra's combination of desperation and the last of their travel money convinces him to admit that a man matching Spencer's description was brought in hours earlier with severe injuries. He refused to stay, the doctor tells her, said someone was waiting for him and would worry. He lost much blood, but was determined. This news brings both relief that Spencer is alive and terror at his condition. The doctor points her toward the docks, where Spencer insisted on going, despite his injuries. The scene shifts to Spencer, barely conscious and using every ounce of his legendary resilience to stay on his feet. He's managed to secure passage on a freighter, leaving at dawn. His plan is clearly to create a false trail away from Alexandra, drawing their pursuers after him while she remains safely hidden. It's a sacrificial move born of his love for her, but also his acceptance of the Dutton fate. As he slumps against crates on the dock, waiting for the ship that represents his sacrifice, his mind drifts to memories of Alexandra, her smile on the African plains, her courage during their harrowing sea voyage, her unwavering faith in their future together. "Some men," he mumbles through bloodied lips, "aren't meant for happiness." The emotional core of the episode reveals itself as Spencer's motivation becomes clear. He believes the Dutton curse has caught up to him, and the only way to protect Alexandra is to separate from her. His decision mirrors the sacrifices made by Duttons before him, placing family obligation and protection of loved ones above personal happiness. As dawn approaches, Spencer's condition worsens. The blood loss and trauma have taken their toll, and he drifts in and out of consciousness on the dock. In these delirious moments, he converses with ghosts of his past, his brother, killed in World War I.E., his father, who died when he was young, and, most hauntingly, his future children with Alexandra, who now may never exist. Meanwhile, Alexandra's race against time intensifies. She navigates the unfamiliar port, frantically questioning sailors and dock workers about an injured American. The language barrier complicates her search, but her desperation transcends words. She shows Spencer's photograph, mimes injuries, and offers what little money they have left for information. The docks are a dangerous place for a woman alone, especially one as obviously out of place as Alexandra, with her refined accent and manner. Several times, she narrowly avoids troubling encounters, her hand never straying far from Spencer's pistol. Her transformation from sheltered aristocrat to survivor is nearly complete, forged in the crucible of her love for Spencer and the dangers that have followed them across continents. In a parallel storyline at the Yellowstone Ranch, Cara makes a decision that will have far-reaching consequences. Without telling Jacob, she sends a telegram to an old connection in Europe, someone from her life before marrying into the Dutton family. "I would not ask if any other option remained," her message reads. "My nephew Spencer and his fiancée Alexandra are in grave danger. Any help you can provide will not be forgotten." This subplot reveals new depths to Cara's character and history, suggesting she has resources and connections from her past that she's kept hidden, even from Jacob. Her willingness to reveal these secrets now underscores the dire situation Spencer and Alexandra face. The episode builds toward its climax as Alexandra finally spots a familiar form slumped among cargo containers near a ship preparing to depart. Her cry of relief quickly turns to horror as she realizes the severity of Spencer's condition. When she reaches him, his skin is ashen and cold, his breathing shallow. "You weren't supposed to find me," he whispers, his voice barely audible over the harbor sounds. "They'll follow me, not you." Alexandra's response is immediate and fierce. "You are my home. Wherever you go, I go. Whatever fate comes, we face it together." Their reunion is both tender and heartbreaking, leaving viewers wondering if these might be their final moments together. As Alexandra attempts to help Spencer to his feet, planning to find better medical help than the questionable doctor provided, they are suddenly surrounded by the henchmen who attacked Spencer earlier, now joined by Alexandra's former fiancé. "This sad display only confirms what I told your father," he says to Alexandra, looking with disgust at Spencer's condition. "You've thrown yourself away on a dying breed, a man with nothing to offer but violence and struggle." Alexandra places herself between Spencer and the men, the pistol now drawn and aimed with trembling hands. The standoff creates unbearable tension, especially as Spencer tries and fails to stand, too weakened by his injuries to protect her, as he has always done before. The former fiancé makes his offer with cold precision. Alexandra can return to England with him, resume her position in society with a suitable story explaining her absence, and Spencer will be allowed to leave on the freighter alone, but alive. Refuse, and both will die on the docks, their bodies dumped in the harbor to be discovered days later, if ever. "There is no scenario where you leave together," he tells them. "The only question is whether one or both of you dies today." Alexandra's response showcases how far she has come from the naive young woman who first appeared in the series. "You never understood me. I would rather die beside the man I love than live 1,000 years in your world of empty privilege." The standoff at the docks represents everything that has made Alexandra and Spencer's relationship the emotional center of the series, their defiance of societal expectations, their willingness to risk everything for love, and their refusal to be separated despite all obstacles. Even in Spencer's weakened state, the bond between them radiates strength. As Alexandra holds the gun with increasingly steady hands, we see in her eyes the same fierce determination that has defined generations of Dutton women. "Though she wasn't born to the name, I've learned much since I left England," she tells her former fiancé, including how to use this. What happens next unfolds in a sequence of breathtaking tension. Alexandra's former fiancé gestures subtly to his men to move in, believing she lacks the courage to actually fire. The first man who steps forward receives a bullet in the shoulder. Alexandra's aim isn't perfect, but her resolve is iron. The shot echoes across the harbor, startling birds into flight and drawing attention from nearby docks. The former fiancé's face registers shock that quickly morphs into rage. "You've become as savage as he is," he spits, no longer bothering with his veneer of aristocratic restraint. Alexandra's response is calm, despite the chaos unfolding. "No, I've become free." The commotion attracts the attention of dock workers and sailors, creating witnesses that complicate the former fiancé's plan for a clean disposal of bodies. As he hesitates, calculating this new variable, Spencer manages to find one last reserve of strength. Years of survival against impossible odds in war, in the African wilderness, and in the continuing battles of the Dutton legacy have given him the ability to push beyond normal human limits. He rises behind Alexandra, bloody but unbowed, a living embodiment of the Dutton refusal to surrender. "You should have made sure I was dead the first time," he tells the men who attacked him. In Montana, tension likewise reaches its breaking point as Banner Creighton's men make their boldest move yet, damming the creek that provides essential water to the Yellowstone Ranch's northern pastures. When Jacob's ranch hands discover the blockage and the armed men guarding it, a firefight erupts that will have consequences throughout the territory. The parallel crises on two continents reinforce the sense that the Dutton family is fighting for its very existence on all fronts. Cara, receiving no immediate response to her telegram seeking help for Spencer and Alexandra, makes a decision that reveals the steel at her core. If they want war, we'll give them war. Back at the European harbor, the standoff is interrupted by the arrival of port authorities, drawn by the gunshot and commotion. Alexandra's former fiancé must now decide quickly escalate to murder in front of witnesses or retreat temporarily. His breeding and calculation win out over his rage, and he backs away with a chilling promise. "This isn't finished. There's nowhere in the world you can hide from me." As he and his remaining men blend into the growing crowd of onlookers, Alexandra turns her full attention to Spencer, who collapses once the immediate threat recedes. His condition is deteriorating rapidly, and the ship that represented his escape plan is now leaving without him. In a desperate move, Alexandra flags down a Spencer's condition comes with serious caveats. He remains in critical condition, and the next 24 hours will determine whether he survives. He should not have lived this long with such injuries, the doctor tells Alexandra with professional amazement. Whatever drives him must be extraordinary. Alexandra's reply is simple but profound. He's a Dutton. This exchange underscores the central theme of the entire series that there is something exceptional in the Dutton bloodline, a resilience that borders on supernatural, forged through generations of fighting for survival against all odds. Alexandra is finally permitted to see Spencer, though he remains unconscious. The sight of him pale, connected to primitive medical equipment, his powerful frame now looking suddenly vulnerable, nearly breaks her composure. Again, she takes his hand, noticing how cold it feels compared to the warmth she's always associated with him. In a voice barely above a whisper, she begins to tell him about their future, not as a desperate plea for him to live, but as an act of creation, speaking their dreams into existence. "When you wake, we'll find passage to America," she says. "Your Aunt Cara will teach me to make that bread you described, the one that made your childhood home smell like heaven. I'll learn to ride properly, not the side saddle nonsense I was taught." As Alexandra continues this one-sided conversation, a nurse observes from the doorway with compassion before informing her that a telegram has arrived for her. This unexpected communication raises immediate questions. No one should know they're here, and Alexandra gave no surname at the hospital. With trepidation, she opens the message to find it's from Cara Dutton, responding to the telegram Cara sent to her mysterious European contact, Help coming. Hold fast. Duttons endure. The brevity conveys urgency, and the fact that Cara somehow found them suggests resources and connections beyond what has previously been revealed about the Dutton matriarch. In Montana, Cara receives confirmation that her message was delivered, and that help is being arranged for Spencer and Alexandra. This news comes as the situation at Yellowstone grows increasingly dire. Banner Creighton's influential backers have begun legal proceedings to challenge the ranch's water rights, while simultaneously spreading rumors in the community that the Duttons have overextended themselves financially and may lose the ranch to creditors. They attack us from all sides, Jacob observes, like wolves circling a wounded bison. Cara's response reveals her unshakable faith. Then they'll learn what it means to face a wounded Dutton. Back in Europe, Alexandra maintains her vigil at Spencer's bedside, speaking to him continuously, as if her voice alone could tether him to life. Hospital staff attempt to convince her to rest, but she refuses to leave him even for a moment. The last time we were separated, this happened, she tells a sympathetic nurse. I won't risk it again. During this vigil, Alexandra notices Spencer's fingers moving slightly, then his eyelids fluttering. Hope surges within her as she calls urgently for a doctor. Spencer's return to consciousness is gradual, first a squeeze of her hand, then his eyes opening briefly before closing again, and finally, his voice hoarse but unmistakable, Alexandra. In the episode's emotional climax, Spencer fully awakens to find Alexandra beside him, her face showing the toll of fear and sleepless worry, but illuminated with joy at his recovery. His first coherent question reveals what drove him to cling to life. Are you safe? When she assures him that she is and that help is coming from his family in America, his next words demonstrate the unwavering determination that defines him. We need to move. They'll look for us here. Even grievously injured, his instinct to protect Alexandra and his focus on survival remain paramount. The doctor, however, is adamant that moving Spencer would likely kill him, creating yet another impossible situation for the couple. The episode concludes with a sequence that masterfully intertwines the two main storylines. As Jacob and Cara Dutton stand on their porch at Yellowstone, they watch riders approaching in the distance, either allies coming to their aid or enemies bringing the fight to their doorstep. Meanwhile, Spencer makes a decision that could save or doom him and Alexandra. Despite medical advice, he insists on being discharged, believing that remaining in one known location makes them vulnerable. Duttons don't wait for death to find them, he tells Alexandra with grim humor. We go out and meet it on our terms. As they make preparations for this dangerous move, neither is aware of exactly what help has been sent or when it might arrive. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers on the knife's edge of suspense until the season finale. The episode's final moments play out with no dialogue, just meaningful glances between characters who understand that everything hangs in the balance. In Montana, Jacob checks his rifle as Cara loads hers, both preparing to defend what's theirs. In Europe, Alexandra helps Spencer stand, his arm around her shoulders as they face whatever comes next together. The parallel images powerfully reinforce the season's overarching theme that the Dutton legacy endures not just through bloodline, but through unyielding determination and the willingness to fight against overwhelming odds. As the screen fades to black, viewers are left wondering, is this truly the end for Alexandra and Spencer, or the beginning of their greatest triumph?